What if the advice you're giving someone else is actually the advice you need to hear yourself? This week, I met a young woman I'll call Suzanne, and her story made me take a look at my own life. By the end of this video, you'll understand how one conversation completely changed the way I think about starting over, and why it might change the way you think about your own life too. I've had to start over more than once in my life, and I thought I already learned this lesson. I was wrong. So over the past few weeks, I have been sharing my protein journey and what it looks like to start over physically. But this week reminded me that sometimes the biggest transformations have nothing to do with our bodies. The other day, I joined one of the virtual productivity sessions that I use pretty often, pretty regularly. It's a web-based platform that helps me to stay focused, especially when I'm working on special projects or if I'm working on my YouTube channel. You have to pay for it. It's a subscription. The format is simple. At the beginning, everyone introduces themselves and they share what they're going to be working on for the particular session. Then everyone works quietly. Cameras are on, but your microphones are muted. And at the end of the session, there's usually a 5-minute reflection. And that's when everyone talks about their accomplishments during that session, if they met their goals or whatever. Most sessions have several people, but on this particular day, it was just me and one other woman. So we worked quietly, just like we were supposed to. And then came the reflection part. It was only supposed to last 5 minutes, but our conversation lasted more than an hour, and it actually spilled over into the next session. So, for the sake of privacy, I am going to call this woman Suzanne because what she shared with me deserves that level of respect. Okay, so Suzanne is in her late 20s. She's bright, educated, and successful. She's also the breadwinner or the primary provider for her family. And from the outside, it looks like Suzanne has everything together. But as she started telling me about her life, I realized that there was so much more going on than anyone could see. She told me about her 2 young children who depend on her because they're really young. She shared that she's in the middle of a divorce, but her husband and her children were all living under the same roof. Her husband wasn't working. He's not motivated. And he's not looking for a job either. He's supposed to be looking for a job. And she said that he spends most of his days smoking weed all day, every day. And now he wants his mom to come and move in with them. I'll admit at first, I found myself wondering or thinking, why is she carrying all of this by herself? Then she explained it to me, so I could stop judging. She told me that she and her husband both grew up in poverty, and she wanted more than anything a different life for her children. She wanted them to have opportunities that she never had. She wanted them to know stability instead of constantly worrying about whether or not there would be enough, because that's what she had to worry about growing up. And I'm assuming her husband did the same. And so even though her marriage was coming to an end, was ending, she kept saying the same thing to me over and over again. He's a good father. He's a good father. She wanted her children to grow up with both of their parents in their lives. And she was trying to make that happen the best way that she could. On top of all of that, she has an incredibly demanding job that has constant high pressure deadlines. Then she told me that she had only slept for 4 hours the night before. And when she told me that, my heart just sank. I wasn't looking at a stranger anymore. I was looking at a young mother who was trying to carry the weight of an entire family on her shoulders. And then she started crying. I'll be honest, it took everything in me not to cry with her. All I wanted to do, I'm getting emotional. All I wanted to do was reach through the computer and give her a hug, because I knew she wasn't crying just because she was tired. She was crying because she'd been trying to carry everything for far too long. So in that moment, I heard myself giving Suzanne advice I had never given myself. So here's what I told her. I said, Suzanne, you can't keep living like this. You can't keep working 12, 14, 16 hours a day and then surviving on only 4 hours of sleep. I know you think you're doing it for your family, but stress doesn't care how good your intentions are. It doesn't care how much you love your kids or how badly you want a better life for them. Eventually, stress catches up with all of us. It shows up in your body. It affects your health. It clouds your thinking. You'll start making mistakes at work because you're exhausted. And I told her, if she doesn't choose to slow down, one day life will force her to stop and slow down. I told her, Suzanne, you can't grind so hard that you never get a chance to enjoy what you're working so hard to build. Then I looked at her and I said, your kids need a mom, not a martyr. They don't need every brand name shoe or every vacation or every opportunity if getting those things cost them you, Suzanne. They're going to remember her hugs, the laughter, and her presence a whole lot longer than they're going to remember what she bought them. I told her that they need a mom who's healthy enough to enjoy watching them grow up. Then I told her, you cannot build a future on empty. And guys, it's like that expression everyone uses, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's so cliche, which is why I don't like to use it all the time, because it's overused. But I told her that rest isn't selfish. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're part of providing. And she's the engine that keeps her house running. And even the strongest engines need to be taken in for maintenance. And that she has to once in a while pull in for a pit stop. And if she keeps running on empty, eventually there won't be anything left to give. Then I told her something that was a little harder to hear. I told her, you have to stop rescuing grown people and abandoning herself. I told her, you can't carry a husband who won't work, carry the financial weight of the household, and then take on even more because everyone expects you to. I told her that she couldn't be everyone else's safety net while she didn't have one of her own. And then finally I said, Suzanne, you need to start making decisions that protect the woman you're going to be 10 years from now. And I told her to stop making every decision around today's crisis, the crisis that she's currently in, because her future self deserves a healthy body. It deserves peace. And she deserves to actually enjoy the life that she's working so hard right now to build. And then before we ended our conversation, I told her one last thing. And I told her, don't spend your adulthood trying to give your children the childhood you never had. Because if she's not careful, she'll finally build the life that she's always dreamed of, but she'll be too exhausted to enjoy it. So when those words came out of my mouth, something inside of me shifted. I thought I was giving Suzanne advice. I wasn't. I was talking to a younger version of myself. I was the woman who believed that working harder would solve everything. I was the woman who thought sacrificing myself was what a good mother was supposed to do. I was the woman who believed if I just pushed a little harder, worked a little longer, slept a little less, eventually there would be time to rest. There wasn't. Looking back now, I realized my body had been trying to warn me for years. I just wasn't listening. Sorry, guys, I'm getting emotional. Whew. The stress eventually caught up with me. And one day, my body made the decision for me. I had my first stroke. That was one of the biggest wake-up calls of my life. And that's when I realized something. I realized something else. One of the biggest reasons I started this channel isn't because I wanted to lose weight. It isn't because I wanted to walk 5 miles every day. And it isn't because I wanted to eat more protein. Those are all part of my journey. But they're not the reason. The real reason is because I'm finally trying to build a life that doesn't run on stress, exhaustion, guilt, and survival mode anymore. I'm trying to become healthier, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually too. Because starting over isn't just about changing your habits. Sometimes it's about changing the beliefs that got you here in the first place. My starting over moment in this story was realizing that I have to retire the identity of the overfunctioning woman. For years, I wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. I thought being responsible meant carrying everything. I thought saying yes to everyone also meant I was being loving. I called self-neglect strength. I called survival success, but not anymore. At 62 years, I'm finally learning that I don't have to be the engine of everybody else's life. I'm learning to build a life that doesn't run on 4 hours of sleep, stress, and guilt. I'm learning that wanting a softer life isn't laziness. It isn't weakness. Sometimes it's survival. And maybe that's your starting over moment too. Maybe yours isn't about your weight. Maybe it isn't about your job. Maybe it isn't even about your marriage. Maybe it's finally questioning the belief that your worth is measured by how tired you are. Maybe it's believing for the very first time that you deserve a life that you don't have to recover from. Because it's never too late to change the rules. Even if your kids are grown, even if you made mistakes, because Lord knows I've made so many mistakes. Even if some bridges have been burned, it is never too late to start over. So if your story touched me, if your story touched you the way Suzanne's story touched me, maybe you'll start making some changes in your life. But remember, choose consistency over perfection. I'll see you next week.